All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Elite Zone, where we talk about real estate, mindset, successes, marketing, tech, and apparently today we're going to be talking about bitch slapping your way to the accelerated path to peace. My guest today is Mischa, and Mischa, I'm going to have you say your last name.
Thank you so much, Max. Zvegintzov. Mischa Zvegintzov. A lot of people just say Mischa Z.
Mischa Z or Mischa Zvegintzov. He's the host of the Influence Army podcast, which has over 650 episodes and counting. And he's the CEO and Chief Influence Officer of the Influence Army membership, where he teaches online entrepreneurs how to go on an influence tour so that they can increase their impact, their authority, and their income. And those three things are, where all the juice lies today. So, Mischa, thanks so much for being on the show. How you doing today?
I am amazing. Honestly, I'm amazing. I am in the flow right now, in the zone. So much good stuff is happening. It's really well, to answer your question. Yeah, crushing it right now.
Crushing it. I love that. And, just so you guys know, normally, I like to meet guests at the front door. I'm standing out by the front door and I get a notification from somebody in the studio saying, hey, your podcast guest is in the studio without you. And so this guy's in here, he's on his laptop, he's ready to go, energy is high. So, I want to get right into it. But first, there's so many different components of your journey and your life and your skills and business and all that stuff. So, how did you get to this seat right here, and how did all this start? Give me a little background, take me through kind of your journey to how you got to where you are.
Yeah, such a great question. I've been in salesy entrepreneur my whole life, and I'll fast forward to 2001, where I had been in sales for a number of years, had been telemarketing like mad. I have made, literally, no joke, over 1 million telemarketing phone calls. First starting by hand dialing, right? Literally hand dialing. And I had a tick sheet, and I would dial 250 hand dialed phone calls a day. I had a tick sheet where it was call made, pick up, I'd get my front line out, yes, no, and just I tracked everything, and
manually, probably.
Manually, absolutely,
yep.
Manually. And I got my start in as a retail commodities broker.
Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's basically the people who sell oil futures, wheat futures. Wheat's going to the moon, oil's going to the moon, gold's gonna crash. Now all the hypes was, for a while, it was in Forex trading, then currency trading, then Bitcoin,
yep.
All this kind of hypey kind of a thing. And really what it was, this was in the late 90s, was boiler room telemarketing. I was in the boiler room, grinding the phones, had a full-on written scripts that I stuck to.
Cocaine, hookers. Guys throwing dice in the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. Had bosses arrested and taken out,
right?
taken to jail in front of me. Yeah, I'm literally calling on the phone, making my 50th phone call and watching my boss go out in handcuffs. What?
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, that's how I got my start. And really what happened was I had a number of years of just telemarketing, door-to-door sales experience. I ended up moving to California, San Diego, by necessity, 2001, ended up in home loans. And what a great time to end up in home loans and the real estate market, right?
Yeah, no kidding. What year?
2001.
Yeah.
Yeah, interest rates were between 7 and 8% when I got started in the business. Now they're heading back there and everybody's freaked out and panicking. But when I started in the home loan business, rates had come down from, 20%, 15%. They were down to 8 and 7%, right in that range. And my boss, Darren Riley, who taught me so much, oh my God, I cannot give back to the world. He's a mentor of mine in the loan business. Just so good at his job and his attention to detail. And it was old school loan officer you just overserved. You overserved.
Yeah.
But anyway, I distinctly remember when I started on the business, literally day one, he's like, hey man, we got to grow your purchase business. Rates are at 7 or 8%. There's no way they're going lower. They haven't been lower than 8% ever. You know what I mean? And fast forward 20 years to now, where we're just coming off 3% or whatever crazy rates were, and rates are just creeping back to where they were when I started in the business. But a little side note there. But everything came together for me in the home loan business, man. I love data. I love sifting through the data. And what I mean that is like, so for me, I when I got started in home loans, people just handed me call lists, and that was natural for me at the time. So I was like, yeah, you cannot give me enough phone numbers to dial, right? So,
wow, that is, I hate cold calling.
Yeah.
Man, but interestingly enough, I was a telemarketer as well.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I was like doing the donation telemarketing.
Yeah.
And I was like 19 when I started. I did it for a couple years. I feel like everybody should experience doing that kind of work.
They really should.
Because you really build your rejection. Your I tend to be a bit hypersensitive myself.
Yes,
but
me too.
It helps against that. And but the thing is that like the place I was, like a lot of those guys got that job because you didn't have to handle money.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were just like fresh out of prison.
Yeah.
So like the boss would come out and be like, raise your hand if you need to call your PO, and like everybody would raise their hand besides like me and like 2 other dudes, and we'd but so it was like all convicts and me.
Yes.
And these guys were great. Like, there was a guy that's name was Big Ride. His name was Big Ride. But when he was on the phone, he was like, Arthur Zakarian, how you doing today, big guy? And, he'd put the phone down and be like, yeah, my car here. And I'd be like, well, what's your real name? And he'd be like, Big Ride. And so everybody's called, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so but on the phone, it's I just wanted to make that side note, like, hey, parents out there, go and have your kid be a telemarketer, even for a couple months.
Right?
Because it's gonna build a skill that is extremely hard, and especially in the world we live in now with nobody wants to actually talk to a human anymore.
Yes.
So not to derail your story, but keep going. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh my gosh. Well, too. So, all this telemarketing I did, and I started listening to Zig Ziglar tapes, Brian Tracy tapes, all these sales tapes, tapes on how to network, all this stuff. And I started, hearing smile when you're on the phone. So I would, whenever I start dialing, or like I sit down now, like you said, I come in with high energy because it's habitual in me. I sit up straight, roll my shoulders back, smile. I always say a prayer too, like, God, how can I be of service? What can I bring to the table? How can I serve you? How can I serve the audience? And it just puts you in such a better position. And when I started telemarketing, whenever I fell into what am I going to get out of this, when am I going to close the sale, when am I going to get the deal, it was always so hard to pick up the phone. But when I was like, hey, I'm just trying to serve here, I'm looking for the person that I can help, man, it was easy. It was like dial away. You know what they say in telemarketing. It's like that no just gets you one step closer to the yes.
Right.
And so when I would slip into that mindset of like, hey, I'm just trying to find that person I can help.
Right. And when you look at it that way, it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
You're not like, man, like, I feel like I can't do this because I'm bothering people. Or You get wrapped up in your head. But if you're looking at it as like, I'm trying to make this person's life better.
Yes.
For an important reason.
Yes.
If they want to tell me, to fuck off, and by the way, we can swear on this show.
Okay, good.
we encourage that kind of thing here.
Yes.
If they tell me to fuck off, it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest aids in sales I've got, because I'm in recovery.
Yeah.
I'll have 11 years next month.
Amazing.
And one of the things that I was told is that no matter how somebody else is treating you, it's never a reflection on you.
It's so powerful.
Right?
Yes.
And that could be, which isn't to say that you may not have a part in the situation.
Yeah.
But if you're on the phone with somebody that you don't know, and you're trying to help them, and they're like, I'm so sick of you assholes calling me, and this is the 10th time, and does your mother know what you do? I mean, the kind of questions you get from people, right? Like, it's so easy to internalize that.
So easy.
And then say, like, this is like my baby, my company. This is mine, and if I'm vulnerable and I go out there and somebody just tears it apart in front of me, it's like it's so hard. But if you just keep in mind, like, this is not you. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about maybe a past experience of theirs. It's about maybe they had a bad day.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what's going on in their life. So I'm sure you've had tons of experience with that. But I want to know, in how many phone calls have you made?
Literally a million.
Literally, so Mischa's made literally over 1 million phone calls. How do you get to the point where you are comfortable dialing and calling and pitching something or selling something without that fear of, like, oh man, like, I just don't want to, it's so hard for me to do?
Yeah, such a great question. So I want you to know too that I started by hand dialing, and I have made millions of dollars telemarketing. I just want you to tell you right now, and you, like, and still today, there is power in picking up that phone. And so I made millions of dollars telemarketing, building telemarketing teams. And so, first it was hand dialing, and then it was like, all right, I started getting auto dialers, multi-line auto dialers. So all of a sudden I'm able to, I don't have to hand dial 250 calls. Now I've got the computers dialing, 2 to 3 to 4,000 numbers a day, a day for me. And then you start layering on people on your team.
So you built up your own team?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got it. And this is for mortgage?
Yeah, this was in mortgage, absolutely.
So you're calling potential home buyers?
Potential home buyers and
real estate agents,
also homeowners. So there's so much. To me, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I got most of my home loan business going direct to consumer, and just skipping the realtors, and then I actually would bring more leads to realtors than typically I was getting from realtors. And I'm not poo-pooing realtor relationships. Like, go out and build those realtor relationships.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure, right? Like, it's amazing. I just tended to go straight to the consumer. So I would mine data and find how long is somebody on the house? How much equity do they have in the house? You can start extrapolating a lot of information, and then you can go, okay, there's a great chance this person wants to sell their house.
Sure.
Right? So you can start calling up homeowners. You could do this today. You could start calling. Well, I could tell you what I would do today if I was a home loan officer as a realtor, but we can save that for the end maybe. But
he's not going to give away all the secrets for free, folks. For free. Click the link in the bio and make a PayPal payment of $499.99. No, just kidding.
That's right.
Please continue.
So go to badzuck.com.
Badzuck.com.
Badzuck.com. We'll give you everything you need. That's a true URL. Actually, you can find out a lot about me there. So do go to badzuck.com.
Absolutely. And guys, we'll drop all of Mischa's links and nuggets in the episode description and in the video description. So don't worry, you don't have to take notes or Google in the car while you're driving. Don't Google in the car while you're driving.
Yes. Actually, do Google in the car while you're driving.
And
find me. Yeah. And opt in, right? Just opt in. I know I'm trying to get to the answer your question of how do I get the confidence to pick up that phone, and I just want to make it clear that I have done the dials, I've built the teams, I've helped those people who are on my team get the confidence, get the assurity to pick up the phone as well. And I believe you got to find a product you can believe in, right? And when I was in home loans and selling loans, I knew I was the best loan officer out there, bar none. I just did. And until I knew I was the best loan officer out there, I leaned on Darren Riley and his team, right? So I was like, I was like, I literally have the best team in the home loan industry.
And you believed it.
And I believed it.
Like
100%,
to the core.
To the core. So anybody who's listening or watching right now and wants to get in the home loan and or real estate business, I would go find a team that you believed was the best, and I would join that team and I would work for nothing. Honestly, or little to nothing, and learn and get on the phones and just leverage and lean on that team. And so where it really came together for me was when I believed in what I was selling and who I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it changed everything, right? And so that is a big thing. I'm also in recovery. I started in recovery when I was 17 years old, actually the last day of high school. Little nudge from the judge. He said, hey, you can go to jail for 6 months or you can jump in recovery. And I was like, I choose recovery.
For sure.
Right? And it's been straight line recovery
Yeah.
for me. When I say that, that means I haven't had to go back out and find out, do I want to use drugs? Do I want to drink again? No. I know, 17 years old, never need to do that stuff again. And I'm not poo-pooing any of it, but going in recovery, the other thing in recovery, if you look at a lot of the 12-step groups and on all the modalities, right? There's like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous,
Codependence
Anonymous, right?
Cocaine Anonymous.
Cocaine Anonymous.
Podcast Addiction Anonymous. Mischa and I are going to start that. Podcast Anonymous.
Right? And or you even think of any of like self-help groups in general, like grief. There's people that are suffering extreme grief because death happens or things happen in their life, and all of these sorts of modalities, these stepified things, a big part of it is service, right? It's like, how do we got to get out of ourselves and get into service. So for me, before I even got into sales, I was already geared towards how can I be of service? What can I bring to the table? So find a product that you can believe in, the team that you can believe in, and then how can I be of service? How can I serve the customer, right? And then I think when you've got those three things together, it's easy. I mean, I had my days, trust me.
I know you've had a lot of it's not like you just like got good at calling and then all of a sudden all the doors open and here you go, millions of dollars.
Yes.
I know you've had some personal challenges and some struggles along the way. And, a lot of podcasts that I hear, on real estate and they're kind of like templated in textbook where it's like, here's the new system to do. Like, I like to talk about the real shit.
Yeah.
So, like, tell me about some of the challenges along the way. How did you keep going to get where you are? Because, and especially now, like, real estate agents are dropping off like flies with the way the market is. And, anybody that's in the business part-time and they're thinking like, yeah, I'm going to work a 9 to 5, but then I'm going to get my real estate license and get rich. Like, it's tough, right? It's tough right now. So resilience.
Resilience.
How do you do it?
Love it. Absolutely. So again, I'm constantly, one of the top things I do is I'm talking to source, my higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, the universe. I'm like, hey, how can I be of service? What can I bring to the table? And that mindset is very powerful. We talked about it. You talked about accountability earlier. I'm constantly thinking, all right, how can I take accountability for when the rough stuff happens, it's like, what's my part? Or if we get resentful, or my boss is a prick, right? It's like, we got to shift that mindset to like, all right, what's my part in this whole thing, right? The other thing too is, I've got a strong community to lean into. So when problems happen, I think it's probably best to tell stories, right? So,
gosh, you are a marketer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was in home loans doing very well for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage, which is A paper. We were A paper. Wells Fargo probably still is in the business, like the A paper, the best quality home loans out
For sure.
there, right?
Yeah, Wells Fargo is a monster.
Yeah, Wells is a monster. And so how did I find resilience in the mortgage industry is the riches are in the niches, right? And so anybody starting in mortgages right now or real estate right now, like trying to help everybody is an exercise in futility.
Sure.
Like find that niche that you can serve, right? And so one of my gifts in sales is to find a niche to go serve.
That's huge. And I am a marketing consultant.
Yeah.
And I run a full stack agency.
Okay.
And I work with a lot of real estate agents, work with mortgage guys, work with people in finance and what have you. But a lot of times an agent that I'll be working with will come and they've got like thousands of people in their CRM. But there's no personalization, there's no segmentation, and they're mass messaging all these people with the same thing. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you have to like buyers in this area with this income. Yes. Just had a baby. Like you'll learn about these people because the more you know about them and niche down, then your messaging and your marketing is much more effective because when you're talking, it's like a psychological principle. Immediately when we got here, we started talking about recovery, and I'm like, boom, safe guy. He gets it. You know what I mean? Yes. So you're making those personal connections, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I had come from finance, right? So I have a finance degree. Mm-hmm. I was in the commodities markets, right? When I was a retail commodities broker, cutting my teeth, hand dialing. Yeah. When I was in that business, I came across some guys who were on the front edge of the computerized trading in the commodities market. So they were trading the S&P 500 futures and options. They were trading
stocks.
Yeah, stocks. Okay. And then they were trading bond options in futures. But these guys were smart. They had the tech, and they liked me. And so I fell in with them and learned all like this high level finance speak, right? And all of a sudden, back in the day, it was Greenspan, who was the
Alan Greenspan.
Alan Greenspan, who's what do we call that guy? What's the guy now?
I have no idea.
Yeah, the head of the Fed.
I just remember hearing his name all the time.
Right, so I was all deep in Alan Greenspan, the Federal Reserve, all these high-level macro, economic and finance conversations. And so when I ended up in home loans, the natural people for me to talk to were CEOs, CIOs, general managers, people decision makers,
high level.
That's it. And that's lucky for me that's who I could talk to. So that's who I marketed to, right? I was not trying to get the first time home buyers. Collaterally, I got them, right? But it's focus on the niche and the fringes follow.
For sure, yeah.
Right?
You get to the top of the pyramid.
That's
Cut off the head of the snake and you get the whole body.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's it. And so, I just focused on that arena. And so when I started mining data, I went to zip codes where those people lived. I found houses that those people lived in, right? So when the market collapsed, things like that happened. Okay, what niche can I go after? What do I know about? And in Wells Fargo, it's such a big company. I found new niches to mine within them. So you got to be willing to pivot. You got to be willing to shift an identity. You got to be willing to start over and try again.
Or admit that you may not know as much about something as you thought.
Absolutely.
Or maybe nowadays, since things change so rapidly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I'm a big Gary Vee fan.
Yeah.
And he always says, people he'll be talking and somebody's like, well, how do you know that's right? He said, I don't need to be right. I'm not claiming that I'm right.
Yes.
I'm saying try it out.
Yes.
See if it works.
Yes.
If it doesn't, then if it does, great, do more of it.
Yes.
But you got to try stuff out. You got to try new things out, right?
Got to try new things out. And this is one of the things that I learned in my sales telemarketing days. I also got into sending out mass flyer campaigns to get the phones to ring, right? Like I am strong on the phones. I'm strong in front of people. Like phone, get that phone to ring, man. And
I don't know. You seem pretty timid and shy to me.
Yeah, right. I know. It's funny. Yeah. actually have stories around that, frameworks around that, how you can fake that. But not fake it, but where was I going? I don't know. Resilience, being willing to start over. Yeah, I know what I was going to say was going to be, whenever I go into a new niche, you start having conversations, you write down the objections, and then you figure out the answer to those objections. And that, when I say figure out the answer to the objections, that doesn't mean trick somebody into saying yes. It means how do you solve that problem?
Yeah.
Right? Or
Right.
you can think of it a lot of different ways. But if you can get used to that little cycle, then it doesn't matter what happens in the markets. It doesn't matter what happens in your sales
Sure.
career. If you're a salesman, like I'm a salesman, I'm a marketer. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like be willing to try a new idea, try a new niche, try a new thing. Write down what people are saying so you can address it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
Right?
don't want to just wing it every time.
Don't just wing it every
Yeah,
time.
that's a great point. Just another quick point is that if you do, like you said, if you do truly believe that what you are selling is a service that makes people's lives better,
Yeah.
it's going to make it much easier to overcome objections, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like, I'm working for this company and I don't really believe in it and I don't even think the product is that great,
Yeah.
like you're already done.
Yeah.
You're done,
You're
right?
done.
Because you're not going to be able to sustain the energy and the positivity. And if you can't transfer the energy of certainty. That's
Yeah.
sales, right?
Yeah.
I'm certain. I need to make you certain, not necessarily only in my product, but in me as
Yeah.
well. And if your energy and what you're saying and how you're saying it doesn't, transfer that, like you're done.
You're done. Absolutely. And I'm a strong believer of not trying to be something you're not, right? So I'm like, this is who I am. This is
For
who
sure.
I work. This is how
I'm a salesman
I do
too,
it.
but you won't catch me making cold calls.
Yeah.
I just don't.
Yeah.
Not that I haven't tried it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty good on the phone.
Yeah.
It's just, I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't do it, man.
Yeah.
I should. Like, even like my mom is like, "How come you never call me?" And I'm like, maybe it's just a resistance to phone calls. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But we'll talk after because
Yeah.
that's a specific skill that I would like some help. Like,
Yeah.
I need to learn how to get better at doing that stuff and just
Yeah.
like doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I'm a systems guy too, so I want to be clear right now. I'm not out there telemarketing very much at all. I mean, now the trick is, follow up with the people that
Yeah.
are interested in what I'm up to. Right?
well, and you're funnels guy, right?
Yeah, I'm a funnels guy.
So
absolutely.
you did you were in mortgage.
Yes.
And then tell me about, the transformation over from you pounding the phones, building a team, and then
Yeah.
now, you got a podcast.
Yep.
You've got lots of great content.
Yep.
You've got your own, content funnel system.
Yep.
You've talked to Russell Brunson.
Yep.
You've done a lot. Like, you've really built yourself up. And, funny enough, just to segue into this, I was in the car with one of my clients, a real estate agent, talking
Yeah.
about making videos, and because I do video marketing,
Yeah.
and she's just like, I'm not really good at the video stuff, and that's just not my wheelhouse. And I said, look, nowadays, doesn't matter what you're doing, you are in media.
Yes.
You're in media.
You're in media.
Doesn't matter if you have a yarn business. I just sell yarn. Well, actually, yeah, you do. But if you want to, get out there and maximize your exposure,
Yeah.
you're gonna have, to learn how to speak. You're gonna have to be on. Okay, you don't have to do anything,
Yes.
guys. Okay, but as a consultant, these are the things that I see working. This is what I would suggest. And the market doesn't care how comfortable we are about doing it.
Doesn't care.
If I worked everybody out in on that sales floor right now, they're all pounding calls.
Yeah.
And with all the marketing tech, all the marketing gadgets, all the tools and systems, those are all great.
Yeah.
Their primary, at Agent Elite, their primary method of sales
Yeah.
is phone calls. And I said, well, hey, maybe, I don't know, like, I could probably do that. And they're like, well, you're going to make, 200 cold calls a day? And I'm like, okay, all right, no, I'll do something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like me catching myself up. They're gonna be like, hey man, we don't care about your feelings. Either you can, or you're willing to, or you're not. Either one is okay.
Yes.
But so segue in. How did you get to the content and all that, the content funnels and everything?
Yeah, I love it. Great question. I do want to say too, I walked in your office. Your office is fairly big, or I don't know, maybe there's 20, 50 people in there right now. The energy is pumping in here. The energy is amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Again, people are on the phones, people are active, people are smiling, it's all positive energy. Like, what a cool operation.
Thank you, very cool.
Here. Yeah.
These guys are awesome. I started working with them about a year and a half ago. Yeah. And I run marketing systems, and I run this podcast, and our companies work in conjunction. But Agent Elite is the real deal. The company culture is really big here.
Yeah,
and you can tell that when you walk in here.
Yeah, I just got the chills. Literally, this is what I want to say. I have been on hundreds and hundreds of sales floors, been in tons and tons of sales offices, and rarely do I walk in one and I'm like, wow, this place is crackling, man. Mm-hmm. And there's good stuff happening here. I'm just telling you, like, I was like, oh my god,
thank you. It means awesome. A lot coming from you.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's cool. So I was like, man, I could work here. When you have that kind of a thought, it's like, this is fun. But yeah, so I was super successful in home loans, and even when the market crashed in 2007, 2008, like I said, man, find the niche, get after it, be willing to hear the no's so then you can learn how to get to the yeses, right? And I actually thrived and had some of my best years in home loans with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage during the market crash. I mean, it was crazy.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So I thrived through that. But fast forward to 2013, 2014, and I'd been through a divorce, another failed relationship. I surprisingly had some money in the bank. I say surprisingly because I had money in the bank, and I had enough money in the bank where I had hit the level where money was no longer the motivator for me.
Yeah, what a great place to get to.
What a great place to get to. But it was also an existential crisis because I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
Like, the ego wasn't in play as much. The need to build that pile wasn't in play as much. So it kind of messed with my head. But literally overnight, everything I was good at in home loans became painful for me.
Wow.
Yep.
I read something in some of your content about you coming to the realization that money does not equal happiness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was everything became painful in home loans. If you found me at a sales meeting here, like in your office, I'd have been the rah-rah guy. I'd have been like, let's get after it. If somebody would have been negative or poo-pooing what was going on, I would be like, you just need to go. Like, what are you even doing here? Change your attitude. I found myself all of a sudden in mortgages, I became that person where I was kind of negative. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
And you were still doing it.
And I was still doing it because my identity was wrapped up in being a successful mortgage guy, successful business guy. My identity was wrapped up in it. And so what happened was I was divorced. My two boys were like 9 and 12 or entering tweenhood or what have you.
Tough time to go through a divorce too.
Tough time to go through a divorce, and I was suffering in mortgages, and I had money in the bank, and my identity was wrapped up in being successful, in being in growing that pile of money. And it's really like, how do I say it? Like, I would compare my pile of money to your imaginary pile of money, right? And I'm like, I was like, mine can't go down relative to what I think you've got, right? Like, I how do I say this? Like, a lot of our Western culture is like build, 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 save, 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 build, 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 save, 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 right? And
well, it's so like individualistic.
Yeah.
Especially out. I mean, we're in Southern California.
Yeah.
I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah.
So when I moved out here, and like I showed up to my job like in a suit the first day.
Yeah.
And like everybody's looking at me like, hello, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Is it? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I'm from the Midwest. You got to dress up a little bit
Yes.
more. But so I'm like, oh, cool. It's like laid back, and everybody, but it's your unique style, and I love that. But then you see like the personalized license plates, and then the high level entrepreneur events. Like I thought it was like a competition.
Yeah.
Well, I just got my brand new Mercedes. This new watch I got more than you. Like you can really see kind of the ego play out.
Yeah.
And so like I was like, gee, I want to be a businessman like that. And so then when you talk about playing a role. And as an recovered alcoholic, like take away the alcohol, I'm a self-centered, frightened man.
Yes.
It's very easy to frighten. You can just walk up and ask me, how's it going on a day? And that's enough. Well, what do you mean, how's it going?
Yeah.
How do I know?
What do you see?
Right, yeah, it's very easy to frighten me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I got to be like this person. Got to be like that person. I got to take this personality. And you craft your own like mask.
Yeah.
Right? And then, but if you do that for too long, and it's really not in alignment with you, you start to get that fatigue.
Yeah.
And, then you get depression, then you get anxiety.
Yeah.
And without being able to use or drink, man, if we don't have something else, we're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So I love how you tell that, and how, like, overnight, it seems like that just, boom, it just hits you. When stuff like that happens to me, that's like my higher power, or I just call it God, because it's easier, saying, hey, Mischa, you were doing this. This was your path.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to flip everything. You're going to have to get divorced. You're going to have to go through pain.
Yes.
Your kids may be resentful that you're going to have to work this out, that out.
Yes.
We've got to get you out of this business and move. And, he doesn't write us a note. Dear Mischa, I'm going to make all these changes in your life. Sincerely, God. That just doesn't happen, right?
It doesn't happen.
And so we're like, what is all this? And you're freaking out. And so how did it shift for you?
Yeah. Great question. And I want to add to what you said.
Yeah.
It's like we get to be of service. God, the universe, what have you, has got us being service one way, right? And it's almost like my egotistical defects of character were serving the universe, right? I was serving. I was growing my family. I was being a mentor to people in the business. I was in recovery. People were gravitated towards me because I was successful, right? And so I got to help people in recovery, right? And then overnight, like we talked about, God, universe, higher power, whatever. It's like, those defects of character, I'm stripping those away, and it freaking hurts, right? It's just like, oh.
Yeah.
But so what happened was I stayed in home loans for about 2 years too long.
White knuckling it,
and I was praying all the time, like, God, what's next? Give me the next career. What's the next thing for me to do?
Mm-hmm.
Career-wise, business-wise, right? And the signs were in front of me. It was like, I had been talking a lot of crap about stay-at-home dads at that point too.
Sure.
Right? And the universe was like, Mischa, whispering, you need to be a stay-at-home dad.
Isn't that
You
funny?
need to be a stay-at-home dad.
What do you hate
right?
the most? Oh, okay, well, that's what you need to do.
That's what you need to do, right? And so I went through this program. The guy's name is Kyle Cease. Everybody should Google
Kyle Cease.
Kyle Cease.
Okay.
He's amazing. And he had me I joined his higher level program, masterminds. I love that kind of stuff. Like anytime we can invest in coaches or
me too.
or any of that.
Value of coaching
lean
is
in,
invaluable.
right? Yeah. So he had me do a bunch of exercises, and one of them was literally write down 100 things you love, 100 things you know, 100 things you understand, and 100 something else, right? And the first 25 of those things are super easy. What do I love? Pizza, women with long flowing hair, my kids or whatever. But you start digging deep. Like, what are the things that I love? What are the things that I know? Like, oh, I know the sun rises in the west and rises in the east, sets in the west. But Like, what are deeper things that I know? But basically, it came down to I did all these exercises and some other stuff, and it was like, oh my gosh, I love that morning meditation and that cup of coffee. I love that quiet time. I love getting my kids to school.
So was this writing them out over a period of time? So
No.
So just sit down,
100,
gotcha.
right? Like
all in one
grind
time.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could go back to it because it takes a while. So I did it over 2 or 3 or 4 days.
Sure.
And it was a lot. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
For me, it was a lot of work. Maybe for someone else, it'd be super easy. But a lot of what I loved was like at the time I had started reading in my younger son Waylon's classes. Right, I think he was in 3rd or 4th, 5th, 6th grade, whatever it was, and I would go in there and read, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or whatever the books were, right? And divorced single dad, and things that I loved, like making the kids lunches, getting them to school, all these things, and it hit me. It's like, oh my God, like literally overnight, I need to use these resources that I have in the bank to live on and support my boys and be there 100% for them through school, quit my job, get them through school, get them into college, right? Next day, I went to my boss, and I can't even remember where I was working in home loans, but I was like, hey man, I quit. And he's like, I still had a great reputation and still was doing enough business.
You can still feel like crap and be good at what you do.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's like, we'll match whatever offer you're getting. And I said, no, you don't understand. Like, I'm done. I quit. I'm retiring. And he goes, literally, I'll never forget it. He goes, gosh, I wish I could do that too.
See the certainty about that you were like, no, you don't get it. Like, this is a transformation.
Yeah.
And he's, oh man, I wish I could do that.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, I quit, and my full-time job became getting those kids ready for school, getting them to school, helping them with their homework, those sorts of things. Literally any time I selfishly was like, I'm going to work on this project or something like big career-wise or entrepreneurial-wise, the universe was like, smack me on the side of the head and be like, no, your number one priority is to be there for those boys. And I'll tell you some of the sweetest moments I had where I knew I was doing the right thing is I would be sitting there at home in the living room, and my boys would open their doors and they would look out of their room, see I was there, and they knew they were okay, and they'd close the door and go back to doing whatever they were doing. Like, literally, my job was just to be there and be available, right? And so I'm going through that process, started teaching a bunch of yoga, which was super fun. Being a yoga teacher gives you flexibility to raise your boys, right? So was doing a bunch of that.
You were a yoga teacher as well?
Yeah.
Wow. You're a bit of an overachiever there.
Yes. I stopped teaching yoga, but I was a yoga
Very
teacher.
cool.
But yeah, a bit of an overachiever, yeah. It's hard to do nothing sometimes, but
hardest thing in the world sometimes.
Yeah. So as my boys started getting closer to being out of school and all that, I intuitively knew, hey, as soon as my boys are effectively out of the house, new entrepreneurial endeavors are going to materialize, right? Like, trust the universe, trust the path, trust in God, clean house, work with others, right? And so I just settled in and was like, all right, my time to be an entrepreneur, to be a marketer, to be a salesman will come again, right? But just...
And how old were you at this point?
Gosh, I was mid-40s.
Man, we gotta have a conversation there. I'm seeing so many parallels in your and my life right now. Like, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So this is really cool. Okay,
Yeah,
so you're mid-40s, and it's kind of like this identity crisis.
Absolutely.
PTSD.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and you're kind of like just at God's or the universe's beck and call. Like,
Yes.
you're doing this, and you have to be tuned into that intuition.
Yes.
Enough to follow it.
Yes.
And you do.
And I do.
And?
Yeah, and I'll give you one really cool little story within that time of just, raising my boys and teaching yoga. Was I had referred a friend of mine, a couple of young guys who were in recovery, to a mortgage company. I know the guy's got a mortgage company, he's in recovery, and I was like, hey, these two guys are good guys, they're hungry, they want to get after it. They're in the business, so they go get jobs at the mortgage company. I get a call one day and he's like, hey, we're going to fire this kid tomorrow unless you want to come in and mentor him, right? And we'll pay you to do it, but see what you can do for this guy. And I was like, all right, God, what's up? You want me to serve here or what? Yeah, for 3 months, let's get this guy back on his feet. So I went in, 3-month contract, coached this kid up. He's crushing it now. This was 4 or 5 years ago too, right? And now he's got a great career. But literally as soon as that 3 months were done, and I thought, I'm going to get back into the loan business. And keep in mind, at this point, it is raining money in loans, right? It's raining money.
Oh, you'd like a home loan? Okay, do you have a pulse?
Yeah.
Okay, here you go, sign here.
Yeah, and rates are down and refis and this and that, and I'm freaking good at the business. And so I was like, yeah.
Yeah, you were good when it was hard.
Yeah.
And if you're good when it's hard,
yeah,
maybe when everything's rolling, it's on, right?
Yeah. And the universe was like, nope. You made it so the moment I thought, well, maybe I'll get back to work and mortgages, the universe was just like, crack! No, you won't, man. You served this kid, you mentored him up, now 100% focus back on your boys. And so anyway, fast forward, one of my sons moves out. He's a good kid. We're great friends, but he moves out, graduates high school, it's like I'm on to my life. Fantastic. My other son is getting ready to graduate. The universe is like, all right. I basically at the time, my last son, I have 2 boys. Mm-hmm. So the youngest one is a senior. He's got a girlfriend. He's got a job. He knows what he's doing. He needs almost no oversight from me. Literally, the universe was like, okay. Here's your new entrepreneurial path, right?
Sure.
And so...
Also, I'll bet the attention and your, just being of service to your boys, making that number one, probably, added to his ability to be like that.
Yeah.
You just being so fully present. I mean, kids are, little antennas. They see stuff from you and they're like, oh, they just pick it up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'll say this too that was really cool. This is a little bit off topic, but I went through this phase where, figure if you look at the arc of my life, my young years, I was taking in more emotions than I was letting out. Mm-hmm. Right? Somewhere along the way, maybe in my 30s or late 20s, I finally figure out how to start kind of healthily dealing with my emotions. Mm-hmm. And so I'm letting out as much emotions as I'm taking in. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. Okay. But to somebody that may not do this kind of work, how were you safely letting those emotions out?
Yeah, right. So it's like...
And why is that beneficial for people to do?
Yeah, great question, right? So I found myself overreacting in lots of situations and perhaps yelling, and before I could justify it by, I'm a kick-ass sales guy, I'm a closer, whatever, right?
I can treat people however I'm...
Yeah, right?
And then you're like, no cold brew at Starbucks! Raw!
Yeah, exactly, right? Or and it's like, I'm generally speaking, most people who know me, it's nuanced, right? So they weren't like, my God, you were an animal.
No,
but
right.
It's nuanced to what are we okay with?
Sure,
right?
You got it. And that makes sense.
And I found with my boys, I would overreact, and the punishment didn't fit the crime, right? My raising my voice or getting right. It was like, oh, you didn't get your homework done, or we're fighting about getting your homework done. It's like that these things, and I really was very aware of I've got emotions that I need to deal with and process, because this is not making sense. Right. And then if you think about it, we're told a lot, and I believe this 100%. There's this idea that anger all comes from fear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
I've actually boiled that down in my own life.
Good.
I've listed out every single thing I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like, I'm afraid of death. I mean like spiders, like everything.
Yes.
And then you go through, well, why are you afraid of that? What do you think is going to happen? When you boil it down, personally in my life, it's fear of rejection.
Yeah.
So if you knew who I really was, you're not going to love me.
Yeah.
And fear of, pretty much the same thing as just fear of being alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to either reject me or I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, and nobody's really going to love me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Scared of spiders? Here's why. You're afraid that nobody's ever going to love you. Like, what? But so continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
I love it. I started thinking about, why do I get so angry when my son is struggling with his homework? And I hate to admit this, but like, it got to be very compulsive, addictive behavior, my emotional outburst towards my son, right? So I'd say, son, Waylon's his name. I'd say, Waylon, I swear this time I won't yell at you. I swear I won't yell at you. I won't overreact. Let's try and get your homework done. He'd say, okay. And then, he wasn't gelling with homework or school yet, right? And so I would end up just yelling and raging, and he would, sometimes would be crying and like, Dad, all I need is a hug. And I'm like, oh my God, like this just doesn't make sense, right? And so the next time I'd be like, Waylon, I swear I won't yell. I swear. Yeah. And I would yell again. And so it really was like, okay, man, like, what's this? If anger's fear, like, what am I scared of? And I'll just cut to the chase super quick. It was completely selfish. Like, as a successful business guy or what have you, salesman, like, I wanted to be able to say, my boys have scholarships. Like, inevitably, when you got kids, someone says, oh, what do your kids do? I take that as, oh, they're, I want to be able to say, oh, they're the star football player, they're the star soccer player, they're great at swimming, they're, they're working on their scholarships.
Accepted to Harvard.
Yeah, of course. Right. Of course. And I was like, am I really that concerned about how they reflect on me? And like that, to that degree and that selfishly, like, I think that I know what they need to.
What you just said right there, I was like a hypersensitive child growing up, and I used to hate it if somebody had a sharp tongue. Yeah. Or when I was a little boy. Yeah. And like my older sister, totally different. She was like, somebody would like yell at her, and she'd be like, whatever, what's your name? But like, I would just melt. Yes. So if somebody would snap or yell at me, I would just melt, and I was like, I'm never gonna treat my daughter that way. I'm never gonna do it, and I ended up doing it. Yeah. And I did it for a long time, and sometimes I still do. Yeah. Sometimes I get to a point and I will just snap and I'm yelling, and then I always apologize after, but my God, like, it is just I just can't believe that how, like, the thing you hated the most, we become. You do that.
We do it. It's so crazy.
And like, no, my childhood was great.
Yeah.
Like nobody ever abused me or anything like that, but it's subjective, right? There's these little things that happen, and kids experiencing them different, and your kid, your son just saying, I need a hug. Like, I have times with my daughter when she's spazzing out and she's really upset, and like we're going at it, and I have to stop and go grab her, and as combative as she is, and I just look at her and be like, look, it's okay. It's okay, and she's like, no, it's not, she's super mad, and then eventually she'll just collapse, give me a hug, and then you can talk to him. Yeah. But for me, that's I got one kid, and I got I just need to do this right. Like, I got to make sure I'm doing this right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm a good dad.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to know I'm a good father.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So I totally resonate with that.
Yeah. I'll tell you 2 great prayers that I learned, or that sort of came to me from my boys, because my boys were very different. They needed 2 styles of parenting, right? And I grew up in Jackson, Wyoming, Wild West in the 70s.
Yeah, you can still carry guns around there in the open, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and single dad, like latchkey kid, which means the TV was your parent. But I had 0 guardrails. Like, my guardrails were massive. I could shoot guns and do whatever I want and do whatever. And so my older son, I gave him guardrails like this, and I felt like I've really given him these guardrails, and relative to the absolute 0 guardrails that I grew up with, I had given him a little bit of guardrails, but it wasn't enough for him in particular. My younger one needed more flexibility, right? And so I was conflicted on how to parent each of them, right? And like I said, when I realized that selfishly I want my boys to be successful, and also, if you think of it this way, like I don't want to be financially responsible for him anymore, right? So that's a selfish
No
thing,
boomerangs,
right?
okay?
Yeah.
When you're 25, you ain't coming back here.
Yeah, right? And so I got financial insecurity. I'm worried about what other people are going to think about them.
Sure.
Also, if you think about
that's such a big one. Like, all the other parents. Well, I know when you got the birthday party, I want to make sure the other parents know that, my kid's well behaved. Man,
right?
It just resonates so much.
And this one's a stretch, but I truly 100% believe this. Like, I don't want my kids to break their arms, or break a leg, or crack their melon, right? Why? And I'd be like, why? Truly, why? Well, if they are in pain, that emotionally hurts me. Selfishly, I don't want to feel emotional pain, right? I can be like, oh, I don't want to see you suffer because I care about you. But, if we perhaps layer it back, it's like, actually, I don't want to deal with it.
Right.
Right? I don't want to have to
go through that emotional labor.
Yeah.
Like if you ran in the street when you were a kid,
and
when you got in and your dad was like, how dare, like just super angry and frustrated, maybe you got a spanking or whatnot, and it wasn't for anything that you did, but it was for the fear that he could have lost you.
Yeah.
And that comes out as anger.
It comes out as anger.
Fear of loss.
Fear of loss.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So selfishly, like, I don't want to take you to the hospital. Time constraints. I don't want to have to deal with the healthcare system, which I'm lucky to be generally healthy, so I rarely need to deal with the healthcare system, so it freaks me out. I don't want to have to pay the bills, blah, 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 right? So anyway, I was like, all right, 2 things. One, I realized I don't know what my boys need to go through to get to where they need to be.
Yeah, sure don't.
Right?
And we can't map that out for them.
We can't map that out for them. And I'm not saying kids don't need discipline or these sorts of things, but it's like, I was like, okay, God, how can I support your path for Cooper, setting aside my own selfish wants, desires, and fears? Like, what do you want me to do to support my son, to help him on his journey? And then being open to what those answers are. So for my older one, it was like, yeah, you're going to have some serious guardrails and take his cell phone when he breaks that rule. And that can be a hard thing to do, man. When you take your kids' cell phones, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And it adds responsibility as a parent. All of a sudden, like, you got to maybe be more attentive to their needs because they aren't able to just cell phone it away or come get me or this. Like, you got to plan a little bit more. Right? And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I'd rather have them have their cell phone. It's like, no, you got to man up. Perhaps you got to start drug testing your kids. Like, I don't want to drug test my kids. Who the hell wants to do that? That's a hard conversation. Here, son, piss in this cup once a week and randomly.
Yeah.
Right? Not saying that did or did not happen.
Yeah.
But that can be. I was like,
yeah, it's emotional labor for us as parents.
Yeah.
If I got to take my daughter's tablet away,
yeah,
sure, that's going to be good, but it's going to be hell's going to break loose for a while, and that's going to derail my day and my productivity. And man, honestly, it would just be a lot easier if I just let this one slide and didn't address it.
And so for Waylon, who the school was a struggle, my older one took the school, was good at it, knew the rules, knew the boundaries. Like is
he the one that needed more flexibility, or
no, he needed more.
Gotcha.
He needed more guardrails.
Yeah.
Waylon, my younger one, was like, "Hey God, how can I support your path for Waylon, setting aside my own selfish wants, desires, and fears?" And it was like, you need to give him space to kind of figure out how school works, and maybe that's going to reflect in bad grades for a little bit, right? And support him, but it doesn't have to be a battle. Like, support him enough to help him, like not fail, but like give him some latitude to work it out. And I'll never forget the day where it was like a couple years later, he literally walked through the door and was like, "Dad, school makes sense to me. I finally get it." And he started, doing great from there. Doing great, whatever that means. But it was like, and he's like, "Sorry," it was really funny. He's like, "Sorry, I was such a pain in the ass about it before." And I was like, "It is okay." But, right, I just needed to like back off, give him some latitude. It didn't need to be a fight. Like, trust him and his ability to like sort it out and see how it works. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
That ain't easy. It's like if your kid, let's say you're a doctor and your dad was a doctor and your grandfather was a doctor, and then you want your son to be a doctor, and your son says, "I don't want to be a doctor. I'm not interested in being a doctor. I don't, I want to be an artist, or I want to be a poet."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "What? No. Do something practical. You're not gonna make any money. That's that's just not. It's not gonna be a good life for you, son." And then you force him into being a doctor, and then guess what? He's a doctor for a while, but he's miserable. He hates it, and that comes out in other ugly ways: resentment, anger towards family, and frustration, health problems. Because believe it or not, emotions are your emotions are a huge contributor to the physical manifestation of health problems. Yeah. And then guess what? 20 years down the line, fuck you, Dad. I never wanted to be a doctor. I hate you. You ruined my life.
Right? It's crazy. I literally still see people today, parents that are like, "My damn 30-year-old or 40-year-old," and I'm like, "What are you even talking about?" Right? Like, you're still that vested in
gotta let them have their own life, man.
Yeah, and
my dad. If I was gonna do something, my dad allowed me to. One of the things I appreciate most about my dad is he allowed me to. Any styles I'm like, he's like, you sure you want to wear your pants like that? And I was like, yeah, this is a styles where we're okay, whatever. I'm gonna get you the, pants that look like, 5 times too big.
Right.
And whatnot. Or, I'd be doing some stuff I shouldn't be doing, and my dad would say, "Look, if you want to do that, that's your decision, but here are the things that may happen if you do." Yeah. And I just want to tell you this because I've been around longer than you.
Yeah.
And I understand some of this stuff. So this could happen, that could happen, this could happen. So before you make a decision, I want you, first, afterwards, like, don't come to me and be like, "Oh, Dad, like this, I did that and this," because I'm telling you now. But I can't stop you.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do it. But, there may be some consequences.
Yeah.
And my mom was kind of like that. Like, they kind of like let me explore, like, "Oh yeah, Max is like hanging out with these kids now and he's doing that stuff now." And, consequently, by doing that, I would kind of like come to the right conclusion on my own. Yeah. After thinking about it. Yeah. But the minute like somebody's like, "You can't do," like, I'm an alcoholic, okay? Yeah. You tell me I can't do something, that's the first thing I'm gonna go do. I'll show you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so like they kind of gave me, a wide berth on some of that stuff. And I don't know, I appreciate both my parents for allowing And I'm a musician. I didn't want to become a sales guy or a marketer.
Yeah.
You know, I got a band. We tour the country.
Oh.
That's why I moved here to San Diego, to Southern California. And like I was harping on that, and like people would make comments like, hey, maybe have another skill. Like, hey son, I know, do that. Like, follow your passion, follow your dreams, but have another marketable skill maybe that, in case this isn't working, you can fall back, or bring in money to support that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they did that, and they always supported me. My mom bought me my first cassette. They always were like, yeah, like this is so cool. My son's in a band. He's he's a songwriter. He's passionate about, because they saw that passion in me.
Yeah.
You can't kill your kid's passion. Right?
Right. We can try, but we can't.
Right. If he wants, they want to be play their guitar on the beach because that's what they want to do, then hey, look, that's what they're going to do. You got to let them come to the conclusion that perhaps this is great, but I'd also like to do something else. That's why I tell my daughter, like, just go try it. Try soccer. Try BMX. Try this, try that. And right now, all she wants to do is play her damn tablet. Yeah. So we're working on that, but try it. Try it out.
Test and try. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So good. Fast forward, boys getting through school. As I said, Cooper had moved out. Waylon's, got school, doing great, got his job, he's a senior, got his girlfriend, and the universe was like, it's time for next for you, and
so stay-at-home dad period has now come to a close.
Effectively.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I stumble across, Russell Brunson. I got a ton of stories around that, but basically I stumbled across Russell Brunson, who's a genius online marketer, and I was like, I'm not going back into home loans, not my destiny, but like I want to figure out this online marketing game. Looks like fun to me, and so I started a podcast. 3 years ago. Actually, November is the 3-year anniversary of it. Started a podcast. I called it Bitch Slap: The Accelerated Path to Peace. Because at the time, I had been, bitch slapped by the universe so many times through my life. And it's like resiliency, reinvention, all these things, right? And like when we get that smack from the universe, do we use it as a tool to learn and grow and change and thrive, or do we, wither up and fall away?
Yeah.
So I started that podcast and started interviewing people and looking for people that had those bitch slap moments in their life, and just started talking about a lot of spiritual concepts and that sort of thing, and really thought that my destiny in the online marketing world was going to be like Eckhart Tolle-ish or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
personal development. And Eckhart Tolle is like the power of now completely shifted my whole perception on life. It's a very powerful book.
Yeah.
Very powerful. He's got some really good stuff.
Yeah. And so I started heading that direction, and somewhere along the line it became clear. It was like wait a minute, I've got all these old school sales skill set, telemarketing, direct mail, scripts, like scripting.
Yeah, and this is before AI, folks.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
He wasn't just typing it into Chat GPT. This guy's the real deal. He was writing the effective sales copy. Right.
Right. Absolutely. And I love Chat GPT.
Me too.
Use it all the time.
I use it every day.
Yeah. Right.
Every
Amazing.
day.
And it became clear that I could serve, heart-centered entrepreneurs. And when I say heart-centered entrepreneurs, I mean entrepreneurs that are like, all right, they're trying to move from that heart center and serve that way, versus like being strictly money motivated or hey bro or so when I say that, a lot of people are like, oh, yoga teachers or this or that. Well, of course, yoga teachers, healers fit into that. but there's like I'm a heart-centered entrepreneur. I'm here to help you get more leads, grow your income, grow your impact, your authority. How are we going to do that, right? Well, I'm going to show you how to script. I'm going to show you how to get on podcasts. I'm going to show you how to, get a good call to action. Go to badzuck.com. All your questions will be answered, right? Like how can I help that person, market kind of like you? Does that make sense a little bit?
That. No,
yeah.
We're like, I love heart-centered entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I am. That's exactly how I feel. And full transparency and vulnerability, you're the kind of guy that I think that, could help me out a lot.
Yeah.
Because, I started my own company. I quit my corporate job.
Yeah.
I was working, high-level marketing, director positions for real estate companies, escrow companies, things like that. And I got to the point where, I couldn't. And I remember talking with my sponsor about this. I'm like, he's like, Max, maybe you're just at a point now where you just can't work for anybody anymore. Like, you got to do your own thing.
Yeah.
And it's specifically because corporate America and the guidelines and lifestyle of recovery do not sync up.
It's hard.
The first time I made amends to my boss, he was like, are you okay? Because what do we do right past hey, it's not my fault if Emily hadn't emailed you at this, hey, I didn't do it, right? I'm like, hey man, look, I fucked up. I am so sorry. This is not going to happen again. What can I do to make it better? They're like, oh, okay, well, geez, well, thank you. They're like, well, thank you. Because you don't see that. So that's huge for me. Like, I'm trying to grow my business. I'm trying, and I feel like there's so many, the gimmicks and the content and the my system and your system and this system and, AI, disruption, all this stuff. And it's been really hard for me to get a grasp on, I got a daughter. I'm a CEO. Now look at me. I'm a CEO, bro. Yeah. But I'm not getting the income that I want.
Yeah.
I don't, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And it is stressful.
Yeah.
But still, when I sit quiet and I listen to God, I know effectively He's like, you're doing good. Like, this is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. So
what is that? And that's heart-centered.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So, I could go get a sales job, probably make I've been, so many times during the day, you could ask my girlfriend about this, because she's the more level-headed one, and I'm pretty, manic, and I catastrophize. Yeah. Honey, I lost a client. Everybody's going to ditch me. In 3 weeks, I'm going to be homeless. Yes. Glenn's going to grow up and be like, my dad was such a bum. Whoa, right? And she's like, look, it's just money. You're gonna find another client, but I'm just gonna go work as a marketing director. I'll get paid $150,000 a year, which I could do. Yes. But every time I think about that, something happens, or I don't get any responses back. Yes. I'm like, your credentials are impressive, but we're gonna choose. So it's like, if God doesn't want you to go down a certain path and you keep trying, eventually He's gonna make it impossible. Yeah. And so now I know, I'm like, okay, I wanted to be a famous rock star. I really wanted, that was my dream to do that. My dream to do that. And guess what? I'm still doing it. I'm still playing on stage. Yeah. But my viewpoint of that was an ego thing. Yes. I want everybody to know I'm good. Yes. And so I'm still doing that, and that's there. But this is no, man, you gotta, you help other people who are on the same journey as you, but they're a little bit behind you, or maybe way behind you, which is the same spiritual principle as recovery. Yep. Right? And fellowship and working with others. That's what I want to do. Yeah. But I have not, it's I'm trying to fit myself into the groove, and it just hasn't quite caught on yet. Yeah. So that's why this has been such a cool conversation. Yeah. So how did you grow your content? How did, and who do you help? Yeah, great question. So fast forward, I the first thing I did, and I need to make this funnel live again, I did a summit called the Tools for a Good Life Summit, where basically it was geared towards, people in midlife crisis, right? And
we're used to pulling ourselves up from the bootstraps,
Sure.
muscling our way through it.
So was the entry form like, did you just get a girlfriend half your age? Yes or no? Exactly. Did you just buy a Maserati?
Oh my God,
yes
right?
or no?
Yeah.
Are you wearing clothes that guys 20 years younger than you are wearing? Yes,
yes or no? Right?
You may qualify.
Right? Or is your Bumble profile, are they, who am I looking for, 25 to 35,
yeah,
right?
25 to 35, yeah, exactly. Yeah, mine is usually like, or especially back when I was drinking, 21 to 25-year-old women with low self-esteem and daddy issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you get a little clear after doing that so long, and then it's like, maybe I ought to, choose something different.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you did that.
Yeah,
you launched this funnel.
And it went great, right? And very clearly, like, people launch summit funnels all the time. Where you bring in all these speakers, right? And then, people register and you're building your email list so you can market to your email list. That's the theory behind it, right? What happens is a lot of people will do these summits and then they don't do the follow-up to get the speakers to market, right? They're like, oh, the speaker is naturally going to want to market. No, they don't. They're busy, right? And so my gift of follow-up, of scripting, of making, of templating a text that every day I was like to all the speakers, like, here's what you can cut and paste into your social media, market my thing. Here's the email that you need to send, right? And I just was relentless with it, right? My old school marketing, follow-up. I script everything, I template everything. Bam.
So you fuse the old school with the new school, which is interesting because one of the things, when I talk, I'm something of a social media guru.
Yes.
Okay, no, just kidding. But I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And when people talk to me about social media and online visibility and things like that, and they're like, well, I'm like posting stuff, but like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, look, like, social media is just like a sales phone call.
Yeah.
But you're doing it with a different medium.
Yeah.
You have to engage with them as well.
Yes.
You gotta like their stuff.
Yes.
You gotta know about them. So if you just post something and you're expecting like just leads to come in, unless you're throwing, big budget at, like, that's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen.
You need to add value, then you ask something.
Yeah.
And if you don't know somebody, you can't really add any value to them.
Right.
Right?
It's so interesting. I'm all about podcasting. I'm all about. I bring people on what's called an influence tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, let's get you started guest speaking on podcasts. Great. Now, what sort of affiliate partnerships can you do? What sort of JVs can you do? What YouTube shows can we
sign me up for an influence tour?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's unique too. I haven't heard anybody kind of productize that experience before in such a, I don't know, it's like a kind of a nuanced sort of way.
Yeah.
Right? Like you hear a lot of people say, well, let's get you on podcasts, or let's get you, but like to actually have like kind of a product, like this is called an influence tour, it's my thing, and here, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and you can go to badzuck.com, by the way, and check it out and sign up.
Badzuck.com.
Badzuck.com.
When's the cage match between you and him?
Yeah, right.
Mischa versus Zuck, are you up for that? Just kidding.
Hey, I didn't say that Bad Zuck related to him.
No,
by the way. That was his stretch.
If he sees me on the street, he's like, I don't know this guy. Okay?
It's interesting. I have more stories around URLs and things like that, but I've been effectively in online marketing for a good 5 years now. Mm-hmm. I've paid over $150,000 in high-end coaching and doing summits, and like I've been in the game learning, right? And I see so many entrepreneurs fail by starting with social media and paying for online ads and things like that, right? And you talked about it. A lot of people are on a shoestring budget, and they're trying to figure out their marketing angle and all this stuff by buying social media. They run out of money before they can figure it out, right?
Yep.
And so I had this epiphany where I was like, oh my! And what happened was two things happened. So I quickly realized that, like, no, I love entrepreneurship. I love marketing. I'm going to bring my mindfulness, my recovery lens into this world.
God, I love that, man.
Yeah. And so what I started doing was I'm really good at asking questions and getting people to, give me the truth.
Sure, yeah, open up. Make a connection.
Yeah, so I started getting video testimonials for online marketers, right? And I literally got paid to fly around the world, to go to Ireland, to interview all these entrepreneurs at a mastermind. I've been flown to Colorado. I was getting video.
Wow.
Yeah, and I realized that, oh my God, people are horrible at telling their stories. Like, I'm getting testimonials, which are powerful. Everybody
you're the testimonial guy.
Exactly.
I'm talking the testimonial guy here.
Yeah.
If you need video testimonials,
Yeah.
listen up.
Right? So I was getting video testimonials for people, but at the same time, they started paying me to interview other people. So I would interview entrepreneurs, and I would say, okay, tell me your story, la la la, and I'd be like, who's your favorite customer? And they're like, they'd have to think about it. Or the actual question was, what's your favorite customer success story? Right? So I'd ask you, hey, what's your favorite customer success story? Right? Because if we can tell our business through our customers' eyes, success, right? So, for example,
Real quick before you say that, riddle me this real quick.
Yes.
This is a big one. This is a problem that I faced at the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
How do you ask that question to somebody if they don't have a customer, if they've never had a customer?
Such a great
How the hell do you prove that you know what you're doing if you don't have any track record that you know what you're doing?
That's such a great question. So Russell Brunson likes to say, work for free and then get that testimonial. So if you have a thesis of how you can help somebody, right? I had a thesis of, man, people need help getting their customer testimonials. And I bet that I'm a good interviewer, because at this point I've interviewed all these people for my podcasts. I've spoken at thousands of recovery meetings, right?
Good for you, man. Hey, man, that's how I got over my fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
Speaking at AA meetings.
Yeah, right? I was like, man, I can help people get their customer stories in a poignant, amazing, heart-centered, authentic way where, so much of it is hype, right? And I was like, that's not who I'm looking for. I want the true emotional story, right? And I was like, I bet I could help people get these for their customers, and I bet I could get them to tell stories, and that authentic story is going to be powerful. So I went to people and was like, I'll get these for you for free, right? And then sure enough, it worked. And then, next thing you know, Rafi and Sarah are paying me to go to their presentation in front of, I don't know how many, 500 people, and then interview all the people at the end of their customers at the end of the presentation, right? And they're telling me, oh my God, right? Like, this is amazing content that we can use in our funnels, that we can use as, support to help us sell. The other thing too, they were like, oh my God, we had no idea how powerful we were, how impactful we were, right? Because they've just given a presentation to I don't know how many people, hundreds and hundreds of people, and I'm pulling them to the side after and saying, hey, what was your experience? Ask them all these questions, and they're saying how Rafi and Sarah just transformed their lives in that moment. And Rafi and Sarah all of a sudden have this video, and they're like,
powerful stuff. Social proof is so powerful.
And it's so powerful to help you. They're like, hey, we want to get on more stages. So we want you to, basically get the audience experience, so we can show people that hire people to speak,
right,
that we know what we're doing,
yep.
Right? So I got all that content for them authentically.
Rafi and so why does that sound so familiar?
They do. I don't know. There's a band called Keegan and Sarah. Maybe it's
There is, or maybe it's Raffi.
Yeah.
Baby Beluga, and the name blues out. We won't get into it.
But all of a sudden, they're getting their own validation of like, oh my God,
we are
good.
That's it, man.
And they're like, holy crap, right? And then
if their ego was a person, you're like feeding it delicious cheeseburgers, right?
Yeah.
And then that just and in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
So in a way, you're documenting the impact that is made in real time.
Yes.
And then you are showing the people who made the impact in real time. Whence without those testimonials, they may truly never know because of the questions that you ask the people, how you get them to to say that. And so you're making a huge difference in all factors of your clients' lives.
Yes. Yep. And then and some of their actual customers were there too that they coached. Yeah. And so, they got to tell their transformational story. Basically, you're trying to document the transformation before meeting Rafi and Sarah. Met Rafi and Sarah. How the heck did that happen? And what's your life like now? It's basically, what was it like? What happened? What's your life like now? Yeah. In effect,
of
right?
Of course.
And so now Rafi and Sarah have this amazing content to share with their audience, to hopefully encourage people to sign up for their coaching, right? And so I'm getting those sorts of stories, but then I start interviewing entrepreneurs, and I'm like, hey, what's your favorite customer success story? And people are like needing to think about it, and not to add dramatic effect, because they don't have that top of mind.
Right.
And we need to have, as salespeople, I help people guest speak on podcasts. I help people go on an influence tour. I have a membership called the Influence Army that people join to learn and grow and community and all that, right? And I've got Dawn Gadden, who joined the community, and all of a sudden she's got 6 podcasts booked for next month. I've got Stacy, who joined the community and all of a sudden gets 2 $6,000 deals by being in our community. Carissa, who joined the community and started implementing some of the frameworks that I teach, she goes and speaks on a live stage, a virtual live stage, and all of a sudden she secures a $30,000 package, right? Mm-hmm. Like, these are real results that I've got for people, and I got those top of mind, and I got more for you, right?
But just so I can, I've seen other, people pitch similar things to this. Yeah. And they're like, hey, Max, I got a group. It's a group of high-level entrepreneurs. Yeah. We can get you on X, Y, and Z. $199. Here's what you get, and it's like speaking opportunities X, Y, and Z, and then you join it, and you're like, hey, I'm looking for some speaking opportunities. I was like, okay, here, cool. I'm gonna get you booked on this. It's a $2,500 speaking fee, and then if you want your video from it, it's another $1,500 to get the video. So before you're done, it's like, shit. I don't have. I need to get that. Yes. I can't level myself up. Yes. Because I don't have the money to pay. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like, how do you help people in that position where they're like, no, I understand. It's not that I'm not willing to invest in this, but I haven't gotten the opportunities to then get the social proof to then be able to build the revenue and the income to pay you the money to help me to do this. It's a catch-22.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, it's catch-22 for sure. And there's like pay-to-play opportunities. Like in the podcast world, one of the big entrepreneurial podcasts is Johnny Lee Dumas, Entrepreneurs on Fire, which is a great podcast, tons of downloads. He helps people start podcasts, stuff like that. But a big section of the people that he interviews pay to play, so they pay to be on that podcast, right? Mm-hmm. There's speaking opportunities where you need to pay to get on that stage, right? Which I think is what you're referring to.
Sure, and I'm not saying it's not fair and it doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense, but there's more opportunities than you can count or that you know about where people want you to speak on their stage, virtually onto their podcast, into their group, into their Facebook group, because they want you to add value to their audience. Right? And so I'm like, well, shit, I'll teach you how to find those, how to get on those, what to say, when to say it, and then let's get your call to action in mind so that when you're on and the host says, where can my customer find you, or where can my audience find you, you're not stumbling around, right? You're like, oh no, go to, for me right now, I've got a few of those landing pages. I was like, if you want to go on a podcast tour and you don't have the finances to hire me to help you, you can go to guestingguide.com right now. You can, anybody watching or listening to this, guestingguide.com. It's the complete guide that'll show you how to go do it. You can do it yourself. I've got templates in there that you can cut and paste to invite yourself onto people's shows. I've got, I teach you how to find the podcast, like all the stuff, man. So you could go there, right? Like that's a powerful call to action. So I teach people and that's in there as well. Like get your call to action in line. Now, does that answer that question?
Yeah, it absolutely answers that question. But here's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm a really busy entrepreneur. I'm trying to lead generate. I don't have the time to reach out to all those podcasts.
Right. So that's amazing because I have a high-end service where we will create the engagement for you. So basically in my membership I have 3 tiers. One's coming, but 2 are built out. Okay. One is the mid-level tier. If you go to badzuck.com, you can join that. It's basically $97 a month. There's coaching calls. There's all sorts of stuff, all the resources you need. It's like done with you, let's say.
Sure, yeah, right? You got the done with you, the done for you.
Yeah, and then I have a done for you service that's currently... I'm not sure if I should say it. I will say it. It's $1,500 a month right now, but it's going up. But basically, for $1,500 a month, we will send out 200 invites for you a month to podcasts to start and create that engagement.
Well worth it.
Yeah,
Even if you land 10% of those.
That's it.
Right worth it. And you decently know how to cut up some content.
Yeah.
Very cool. And just for the record, folks, big pet peeve of mine is when you go to talk with somebody and they don't want to give you any prices for anything until like the 4th call. This guy just told you how much his program costs, all right? So he's a no bullshit kind of guy.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So then we got you got the done for you. And then you have is there something coming down the line that you're launching a little bit that you're excited about?
Yeah, that'll be the do-it-yourself. So the do-it-yourself will be...
You create the system.
I create the system, and then you're getting access to all the content we're creating and the done with you and the done for you. You just don't get it live. You're just getting recordings as they come out.
Yeah, for folks that have less money and more time.
Exactly.
And the high package is folks that have less time and more money.
Exactly. So I've got, most people say start by building tier 1 and then tier 2, tier 3. I started with tier 2, got tier 3 done, and at some point I'll so what's coming is tier 1, and then, the natural next things that are coming are, live masterminds. Let's all everybody in our community go to Fiji and surf and mastermind how to get on more podcasts and build better affiliate relationships.
You go meta, and then you teach people how to do what you were doing, and then you teach people how to teach people how to do what you were doing, and then you coach people that want to teach people who want to teach people who are doing what you're doing. You go meta, not a Zuck thing, as in meta. Believe it or not, Zuck doesn't own the term meta. Well, listen, man, this conversation has been, you've just killed the next 4 hours of my day because I'm about to visit all the websites you said, and I'd like to schedule a call or a coffee or something with you because I have so many questions you don't even know, and I need some help, brother. So I would love to talk with you more about this.
Cool.
I feel like, the universe, God put us in this room together. And so, I'm not going to ignore that intuition. But before we wrap up here, I want you to talk to the person who is going through that kind of identity, existential crisis in their life. They've been doing something that worked for so long, now it ain't working anymore, and they just don't know what to do. What are a couple of things that you can say that will hopefully allow this person to find their path or find their direction?
Yeah. Great. So, prayer, meditation, journaling. Like, I did that Kyle Cease thing. Anybody can go to it. It was called the Complete Journey, I think it was.
So Kyle Cease,
Kyle
the Complete
Cease.
Journey. Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
check that out.
Journey.
Or
Yeah.
Google Kyle Cease.
Yeah, he's got two things well, he's got a bunch of stuff, but there's one called the Entrepreneurial Journey, I think, which is cool, but the thing that we're talking about is we're in that existential moment of
this is like, I don't have a life purpose anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And this thing, it's like the complete journey or something like that.
Cool.
Super powerful. But basically, it was to write down the 100 things you love. There was a bunch of stuff in there, but core thing: 100 things you love, 100 things you know, 100 things you understand, 100 things you're good at. What you do is you look at all that stuff and you go, the 100 things I'm good at, what I learned is just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was like, I'm good at a lot of stuff, so that means I need to do it. That's not true. So you inventory this stuff, and then you take a moment and you literally go through each thing and you go, does it make me feel light or does it make me feel heavy? And if it makes you feel light, you put a dot next to it.
Yeah.
Right? And then
that's a great way to put, instead of do you enjoy this or not?
Yeah.
Does it make you feel light or
heavy? Right? And so just super quick, right? I literally did it. I inventoried those things that I told you, and then you go back and light or heavy. And I'm telling you, I was like, oh my God, I need to quit my job and go support my kids. There's people out there right now that need to quit their jobs. I'm not saying you should or whatever. That's up for you to decide.
Yeah, don't just quit your job, okay?
But, right? Or it's like, the next step could present itself. The other thing that it was in there that was very powerful is you go to like 10 people and you say, hey, what do you see in me?
Oh man, that is so good. It's so hard to do.
It's so hard to do, and I did that.
Gosh,
and
people probably looked at you were nuts.
They did.
Or either that, or they were like, they felt like so honored that you would ask them.
That was it.
They're like, you want my opinion on
Yeah.
that?
So check it out. I went to people that I figured would give me positive feedback, but I went to old bosses. I went to my ex-wife. I was like,
dude, that's heavy, spiritual. That's real work.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah. So I had an old boss who, we left on good-ish terms, but I was like, I want to know what this guy would tell me. And I talked to him, and he said, look, Mischa, he goes, you have this presence, and you can take over a room. I'm getting the chills just talking about it. But he goes, the thing about you is you use it for good, and sometimes you'll sway the room in a bad way. Meaning that I wouldn't support him, right? And I was like, oh, I'm more powerful than I know. I say this as non-egoically as I can, but like, I was like, oh, man, I need to be really cognizant of, am I using this presence as I have to support versus knock down. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, which wolf are you feeding?
Yeah,
you got both of them inside of you.
Yeah.
You're feeding one or you're feeding the other.
Yeah. So
you could say the good wolf or the evil wolf, but usually it comes down to, like the service-minded wolf or the egoic wolf.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your ego is useful, and without an ego, people have argued that we wouldn't be able to self-sustain. But in recovery, I have looked into the eyes of people that have zero ego, and they is like the most light, airy. The energy. It's fantastic. Being around people like that.
Yeah. So. I think I would end with this too, just as a final thought for everybody. Like, there's, I love mindfulness. I love mindset stuff. I love all these things. There's a lot of noise out there about microdosing, ketamine treatments. What do they call the herbal? What's the term? I don't even know what the term
nootropics.
Is. Nootropics,
brain meds,
or like plant-based medicine.
Plant-based medicine.
Plant-based medicine. Like,
sure.
I am an addict alcoholic, right? So that stuff is all a no-no for me. Prescription meds, all that stuff's a no-no. So I think, like, if you're out there looking for solutions, mindfulness solutions, watch out for that. And I say this as humbly as I can. Watch out for these alternative, chemically based solutions. I say that humbly.
We know this because we're marketers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if you're on a mindfulness site, I always say this to anybody looking for a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
If you're just looking for information and you want it to know if it's accurate or not, usually if at the bottom there is a click to buy now, it's probably not giving you the full truth because they're marketing something.
Yeah.
Right?
Like the microdosing and all these sorts of things are helping people with PTSD. So I don't want to poo-poo that at all. But due to my history, all that stuff's off the table for me.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to be wary to the new chemical solutions. There you go.
For sure. And that's great. So, some of my favorite people out there, I mean, we got Gary V, we got Grant C, we got Jordan B, the Wolf of Wall Street, we got, but now we got Mischa Z. Mischa Z, this was so cool, man.
So good.
What a great conversation.
Yeah.
Real quick before we go, tell people how to get a hold of you, where to check you out. I want to connect as many of our audience with you as possible.
Yeah.
Because I think they don't even know that they need to talk to you.
Yeah.
So
love it.
Spill it.
Amazing. So go to the Influence Army podcast. Technically, it's currently called the Table Rush Talk Show, but I'm going to be rebranding it. So if you're watching this, the Influence Army podcast, you can follow me there. Opt into my list by going to guestingguide.com. Even if you don't want to know how to get on podcasts necessarily, opt into my email list.
That's free value right there.
Yeah, free value. Free value, and then you'll be on my email list. And I'm sending out a couple emails a week that are, for heart-centered entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And then if you are like, man, I love what you're laying down, Mischa. I want to go on an influence tour. I want to go on this podcast tour. Go to badzuck.com, opt in. I have a $7 trial right now, so for $7 you can trial for 1 month my $97 program, and be wary that those prices are all getting ready to go up. So do it now.
Yeah, do it now. There's a little urgency and scarcity for you folks.
But
don't ever tell Mischa he doesn't know what he's doing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Hey,
I'm not, but I am. All right.
Yeah, and there's truth behind it. Like, the feedback that I get constantly is like, you don't charge enough for this.
No. Yeah.
Right?
No, and you're a heart-centered guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to charge anybody anything.
Yeah.
But look, the natural process of life needs to be up.
Yes.
And if you're bringing value, then you need to charge for your value.
Yes.
As a former people pleaser, I've been told that myself all the time. Like, dude, you're doing way too much for your price.
Yeah.
Believe in your value more.
Yeah. And
you tell people, hey, this is the price because this is it. I'm worth it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's great. So go there. And anything else? Social media accounts? Anything like that? Or nah?
I'm all up. Go to my podcast, and that's where the juice is for me. I'm in and out of social media. Yep. I'm always on my podcast. I'm always sending to my email list. And
cool. Yeah. And if this is resonating with you guys right now, drop a comment in here, or just shoot me an at Max Does Marketing or at Agent Elite, and I'll go ahead and send a connection to Mischa over here. Pleasure to have you on the show, brother.
Thank you, Max.
Absolutely.
Enjoy.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Cool.
All right, and we're out.